To discuss the way paved from Gothenburg to Porto, please welcome on stage the President of the European Parliament, David Sassoli, the Prime Minister of Sweden, Stefan Löfven, and the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Valdis Dombrovskis. An interview will be conducted by the Minister of Labour, Solidarity and Social Security of Portugal, Ana Mendes Godinho.
Hello, hello, hello.
Can get rid of the mask, yes. Can we take out the mask now?
Well, good afternoon to all of you and welcome to this Porto Social Summit, which I hope and I think we all desire that can be an historical moment for all of us, and I think that's why we are here. I think so enthusiastic for being together, for being in presence together, for sharing this common desire and aspiration that we all want for Europe. Well, first of all, let me say that we are exactly going from Gothenburg to Porto, and here we are on the road with some miles far away, with so many aspirations that are so close to our hearts and our desire in the moment we live. Well, I believe this is our moment. This is the moment to reflect together, to share what we want to do, what we want to change to accelerate in Europe. But this is also the time to give the impetus that we need to give to the action plan of the social pillar and of the European pillar of social rights, and to support the European recovery and the climate, the digital change, that transitions that are happening. We need to take action, and the European Pillar of Social Rights, when it was proclaimed in 2017 by the European Parliament in Gothenburg, the Council, the Commission, with 20 key principles and rights to support fair and well-functioning labour markets, and we cannot forget that these are our 20 principles. Gothenburg gave this determinant impetus to the reinforcement of the European social model, and it put it in the front page. And for the last 4 years, these 20 principles have been in our day-to-day lives, and they were the beacon guiding us towards a strong social Europe. Let us now, today, start the writing of this live book that we are doing here together, but let us hear from all of us what we can actually do and what we can accelerate in this moment of transition. I will start by you, David Sassoli, Mr. President of the European Parliament. Comincio per lei, and I will ask you how do you see the role of this increasingly role and fundamental paper of the European Parliament in this European process, and how do you evaluate, for the time being, the involvement and participation of the European Parliament in the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights?
Sì, grazie.
Well, thank you very much. Well, greetings to everyone. Thank you for the invitation. We are here in Porto. We're running a bit late, but thanks to António Costa, we all managed to come here. We've all been called upon to provide a response to create and discuss our identity card. Because welfare, the social pillar, social rights are, in fact, our identity card. We need to help Europe to have more solidarity, greater consensus, to be more resilient, to have a greater capacity. We cannot achieve that if we ignore our pillar of social rights, which is what brings us together, what holds together our citizens and helps them in the very difficult period they're going through at the moment. So, we need to respond to the invitation of the Portuguese Presidency, of all the institutions. We need to respond to the Commission's proposed action plan. And we also need to respond to the demands of the European Parliament that has also put forward tangible policies. And we need to be tangible because that's what will make the difference. It is vital for us to be tangible if we're going to help our citizens get out of this slough. We need to have concrete action. If we do not, then difficulties will only spiral further.
Mr. President, we all know how the European Parliament represents and expresses the political diversity within Europe, within the Union. So how do you think that the European pillar and the action plan can, in fact, contribute to feed the Parliament's debates and the agenda and the often different views that we all know that are coming from the different political families in the next decade?
Ma il Parlamento è molto impegnato.
Well, the Parliament is firmly committed. In fact, we have been firmly committed for a year now to responding to the crisis. If the Parliament had not remained open, we wouldn't have had a response with the crisis. But we've done this in cooperation with other institutions. A significant effort has been made, both to address the economic and social problems, as well as the health challenges. At the moment, of course, we have to do better. A year has gone by. We must do more. I think the capacity of the Union to help our citizens, especially our more vulnerable citizens, is absolutely vital. We really need to work harder. And we hope that we have risen to the challenge. So the European Parliament is united in playing its role. Now, we very much appreciated the Commission's action plan. Thank you to Commissioner Schmidt, who's with us here today. And I think we need to get down to discussing them immediately, as I said, to come up with tangible proposals for our citizens and for our countries as well as our companies.
Thank you, President. I'll pass the floor now to Mr. Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, which has been an historical person in this process coming from Gothenburg. And in 2017, when we were discussing exactly the pillar in Gothenburg, Europe had just overcome the previous economic and social crisis, but nevertheless, we had huge economic and social challenges ahead. And Gothenburg was this unique opportunity to show a joint commitment to protect and to uphold the rights of equality, fairness and opportunity for all citizens. So it was a marking point and a turning point. And the first social summit was organized in Luxembourg in 1997. What was on your mind? What were you thinking 20 years later to pursue the ambition of holding a social summit which proved to be a landmark in the building of a strong social Europe? What was on your mind?
On my mind was that we need to be very clear what the purpose of this cooperation really is. The cooperation, the European Union that we have is about improving lives for people. And after the financial crisis, there were too many people that felt mistrust, disbelief in the future, and thought that politics, be it at the national level or the European level, couldn't do anything or too little to improve people's lives. I think it's the purpose was to show, no, that's not the case. But we need to step up. And there's no better way to do that, to gather the leaders from different countries, to say that the highest decision-making body in this European Union will clarify that the social dimension is as important as any other dimension in our cooperation. Because without the people, we're nothing. This is not primarily about financial flows or flows of goods. Those are good tools to create wealth, to create welfare. We need those. So that cooperation is good. But along with that, not beside or after, but along with that, we need to have a clear social dimension so that people can see, yes, I have a place today, but I also have a place in that future project. Because if we don't have that sense of feeling, we're not going to be, people will not be happy with that. That's the first thing. The other thing is that we will lose competitiveness. The best competitiveness we can have is if people feel, yes, I'm on board. I have a place. I want to contribute. And I feel safe because I know that the economy will change, labor market will change, some technology will get old, we'll get new technology, new jobs, but that's the future because I know I'll be there. And therefore the three fundamental principles in the declaration in Gothenburg was the right to job. If I express it in a different way, everybody's right to job should be absolutely clear. This is what we need to work with. How do you do that? How do you work with innovation, the public sector? How do you make sure that the people are needed? And how do you train people for those jobs? So, and how do you create working conditions that are decent? The President of the Commission reminded us just recently we have 15 million, we want to rescue 15 million people from avoiding poverty. That's on our continent. It's unbelievable. We shouldn't be in that position. So I think that's the right to job, decent working conditions, and if you cannot work, if you're sick, if you're unemployed, what's the social security when you cannot work? Those things will bring people on board. So I think the key message was in Gothenburg. I think the key message is here. Thank you, Antonio, for gathering us again. Thank you for taking the torch from Gothenburg to Porto. Thank you very much, because it's a new message, it's a renewed message to the people that this is a basic idea with the European Union cooperation, improving people's lives.
Thank you. And in fact, when we look back to Gothenburg, we did come a long way since then, and we did show as Europe as a whole, in a coordinated way, answered in a very, very intense way to protect jobs during this pandemic, to answer and to protect people, families, citizens. And what do you think, what steps in the middle of this pandemic, what steps should we take from Porto from now on to guarantee that, as you said, people are part and feel that they are part of the project that we are building, and that without them we are nothing?
Well, first let me say I'm very glad for the Commission's action plan, because as was said recently, principles are not enough. Principles are important to build upon. So that's a guidance, but we need action. So I think the most important thing is built on the same thing that I said in my previous statement, is that you show people that first education for our young citizens is something everybody is entitled to, decent education, so that when you reach your own age, you reach that as a free individual, strong individual. But you also know that we should cooperate more in the economy. I mean, we have a huge continent that we will innovate new products, because new products will create new jobs, and the more we can have enterprises demanding workforce, the more people will have a job. So I think that innovation, research is very important. Energy, all these things are basic to create new jobs. But also making sure that men and women, for example, are treated the same way, because women generally have a lower employment rate than men. Why is that? Why do we not utilize all the competence, all the force that we have on our continent? So I think showing also that gender equality is key. I think that is a key thing, and that means that men and women must have the same possibilities on the labor market. I think also the working conditions, if we can help one another improve working conditions, nobody should fear going to work, because we might get killed during the work, or you might get seriously injured. That is one thing that we can raise the standards, and then the social security when you cannot work. How do we improve the social security? So whether no matter if you live in Sweden or in Portugal or in other countries in Europe, you know that if I cannot work, I don't have to leave my house or my home. I can feel safe financially, and on top of that, I will also get support to my next job. Those are the things that we need to do, and I think generally the best thing to do that is to do that both nationally, but also in cooperation between our countries in our union.
Which was so evident during the pandemic, to see when everything stopped, all the economy had to stop for a sanitary reason, that there were mechanisms to support jobs and to maintain the revenue of families in such tough times. So I think this was also a very determinant moment, even to give legitimacy to what we are all doing here, and to guarantee that, as I think you said, to take advantage of the best asset that Europe has, which are people. So use people as this advantage to competitiveness, as the basis our competitiveness in the world. Well, I'll pass now to Mr. Vice President Valdis Dombrovskis, and listening and wanting to see from your point of view, now turning from 2017 to 2021, what do you see as the main achievements that the European Pillar on Social Rights have done in terms of the Commission side?
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first of all, with the proclamation of European Pillar of Social Rights in Gothenburg in November 2017, we put social policy right at the center of European policy making, where it belongs, and basically acknowledge the fact that economic and social issues are two sides of the same coin. Since then, we had been building on this, and actually there had been some 75 initiatives at different levels from European Commission on developing on the 20 principles of the European Pillar of Social Rights. And there I would particularly highlight three directions of work. So first, skills. Something we acknowledged already in 2017, that the world of work is changing with a rapid technological development. We need to equip people with right skills to be able to meaningfully participate in the labor market. And that's where, for example, European Skills Agenda comes in. But now the context is changing, but skills is becoming even a more important issue. We now have two flagship policies of green and digital transformation of the economy, but this means that the nature of work is going to change even more rapidly. And with this, the emphasis on skills, on reskilling, upskilling, lifelong learning will become even more important. So this is a first very important element, skills. Second important element on which we have been also working is making work pay. So fair and predictable working conditions, and one can mention different initiatives like social protection for all, because also the nature of work is changing. We have new atypical contracts, new atypical work relations, and we must ensure that regardless of what kind of work relations you have to contribute to the social system, and you need to be able to benefit from the social system if it's needed. So we need to ensure social protection for all. We need to ensure decent wages. That's where our proposal on the adequate minimum wage framework comes in. We need to have good working conditions, occupational health and safety. So fair, good, predictable working conditions, making work pay. That's a second very important work direction. And there probably I would also highlight especially the support for young people, because for young people it's often difficult to enter into labor market. Also now in COVID-19 crisis, youth unemployment has increased at the speed 3 times higher than general unemployment. And that's President von der Leyen already mentioned the youth guarantee, which we are now strengthening, building up on this, also building further on initiatives like youth employment support. So clearly this focus on youth is very important in this context, but also in other vulnerable groups in labor market. And third very important direction is adequacy and sustainability of our social protection systems, helping those who are most in need. Because once again, if we look at our flagship policies on green and digital transformation, they will only be successful if they will be socially acceptable. So we need to ensure that this transition is happening in a socially acceptable way, that also recovery from COVID-19 crisis happens in inclusive way, that there is emphasis on reducing income inequality, leaving no one behind. So those are 3 very important work directions I would highlight, and I would say that helps us to protect and adjust our European social market economy to the changing reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Valdis Dombrovskis. Of course, with this strong and powerful action plan, we have a roadmap for the years to come. But how do you see that we can guarantee the coordination of the pillar and the action plan with the other strategies and with the several measures, instruments developed by the European Commission, such as the financial instruments like the Next Generation EU or the recommendation for effective active support, and with the European processes?
As regards now action plan on the implementation of a social pillar, of course this is one of the deliverables we hope to see as European Commission is your endorsement of the action plan, so that we can really build on this. And as I was saying, action plan develops the social pillar, but already in a new context, in a context of green and digital transformations, in a context of post-COVID-19 economic recovery. And in terms of coordination of this work, so European semester, our macroeconomic and social policy coordination cycle would remain the main tool for the coordination. We are adjusting our social scoreboard for that purpose. We are putting forward new indicators. Once again, President von der Leyen already mentioned the new indicators like concerning employment levels, concerning the share of people in training, concerning how many people we need to bring out of poverty. So we need clearly to put new indicators in the European semester, but we see European semester as a main tool. Then you mentioned effective, active support for employment, and indeed, now when we are starting to come out of COVID-19 crisis, we will need to shift from the measures which are kind of sure type of measures, which is to the extent possible, protect employment, to finance programs like short-term work schemes and civil programs. Now, when we are coming in the, out of the crisis, we will gradually need to shift emphasis on active labor market policies, which would help us to accompany green and digital transitions of the economies, and that's where our ease recommendation comes in. Thank you.
Thank you, Valdis Dombrovskis, and thanks for this panel, your inputs, and especially for your commitment and for what you've been doing also to guarantee that Europe is a union that supported on people. I think it is obvious, and I could sum up from our conversation, that the European Pillar and the Social and the Action Plan can be, in fact, right now an answer for the expectations of people and for the hope, the feasible hope that people need. People need to believe, need to trust, need to see a Europe that they be confident on, with concrete answers for their concrete day-to-day needs and day-to-day lives to real people. And we are addressing real people who are waiting for our answer and our capacity to resolve their concrete problems. And this is our time, I would say. This is our time to act. This is our time to accelerate and to guarantee that the responsibility we all have at different levels are put in place to answer the concrete needs of our Europeans that do need this to trust. This is the only way for social peace. This is the only way for us. This is time to deliver. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Grazie.